Hello folks, welcome to Legacy IS Academy. We will be discussing a current affair topic today presented to you by your faculty Sushma KP. So what is the topic that we will be discussing? US-Iran's proposed peace deal. Like as usual, I will be explaining this topic like a story concept. So you'll be able to understand it better, then we will enter into the video. So what happened is, we all know that February 28, US and its ally Israel launched two preemptive strikes, that is, surprise attacks on Iran, namely Operation Epic Fury and Operation Roaring Lion. With this, one of their main objective was initially thought for a regime change. They killed your Iran's former supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Then they thought that the people will now raise, there will be a change of regime, and also they will completely obliterate the nuclear ideas, plans, future, anything that is to be included from Iran's phase of nuclear enrichment. The idea initially seemed to be swift victory because your US was just fresh off coming off from your Venezuela success of deposing your Nicolas Maduro regime. Now your Venezuela has your interim president Delcy Rodriguez. But they underestimated this Iran scenario while equating it to your Venezuela. Iran has a strong layered security with respect to your supreme leader. It is strongly having a clerical base, and then with respect to your president, and then comes your IRGC, then Basij militia. All this are there. Yes, they took down all the top leaders, and yet they were not able to get Iran, okay, in that swift victory of their achieved targets. So finally, this is an ongoing war where they have determined that they are reaching towards a peace deal. At least that is what US President Donald Trump over the weekend has claimed, that a memorandum of understanding has been reached, and this memorandum of understanding means it is not a final accepted document. It is one step towards your negotiation. Now, many known officials from your Iran side also have been holding that yes, a memorandum of understanding or a talkway is going, but not everything US President Donald Trump claims is what we are agreeing on. What is US President claiming? First and foremost, in the memorandum of understanding, there will be, if both of them agree, there will be something called as a period of your relaxation, somewhere between 30 to 60 days. In this period, what your USA and its ally Israel will do is they will stop the attacking of your Iran and its allies. That is, it will stop attacking on all fronts, including Lebanon. First thing. Second thing, it will allow for the port blockade, what it has put for Iran, it will remove that. In this 60-day period, they will decide on the question about your nuclear capacity or nuclear aspect of Iran. According to US, that means that Iran has to promise it will never be a nuclear powered state. Okay. Now, what should Iran do in return? Means it has to open Strait of Hormuz completely. It has to remove the mines it has set up. Okay, and it will be not charging any tolls for the freights that is passing through. And also, your Iran has to hand over the remaining enriched nuclear uranium, which is enriched up to 60%, which is just short of a little for your weapons grade uranium. Weapons grade uranium, 90% of uranium enrichment is needed. As of now, your Iran has 60% enriched uranium according to your IAEA. In this point of 60 days, they will decide what to do with this enriched uranium. This enriched uranium that Iran has is what your US President Donald Trump calls as nuclear dust. Understanding? In this, Iran is telling there is no way that we have agreed that the fate of Iran's nuclear enrichment will be decided, because we will not agree to that. Yes, we will agree to the fact that what to do with the remaining nuclear enriched uranium, that we will discuss. But we will not discuss the fact that whether your Iran has to pledge that it will never be a nuclear state is not something that we are agreeing upon. So there are multiple things that has to be discussed here. Now, this particular aspect, that there is a memorandum of understanding, but no one knows what is written in that, just a possibility of these concepts. So, many people, how they have welcomed this means, your Gulf countries are happy because then it will bring stability. Your countries such as Pakistan has held that this is a hopeful thing with regarding to reaching a proper deal. Your US Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who is now in India, has also held that your Iran has to promise it will not be a nuclear state. But this decision is not welcomed by everyone. For example, a Republican Ted Cruz himself has held that if at all Iran gets a deal where it gets access to the Strait of Hormuz, nuclear enrichment, and then billions of dollars coming in it with, then that is a catastrophe. It's not a good deal. Same is where your Democrats also have held that if at all, okay, a deal is made, it looks like Iran has an edge. This is not an acceptable deal. For those who are criticizing US President's concept of memorandum of understanding, US President Donald Trump has told that these people are losers and they are just criticizing everything before even knowing what is there in the memorandum of understanding, and he tells this is better deal than what was made during your former US President Obama administration. The former US President Barack Obama had also made a deal with your Iran with respect to your JCPOA, Joint Comprehensive Plan of Actions, with P5+1 countries. That Trump considers as a bad deal. Now, if you see from India perspective, this deal is very much welcomed. If any way they could reach a stable point, because our security is dependent on this. By our security, we mean our diaspora security, our energy, infrastructure, okay, and your calm areas in opening of Strait of Hormuz. Hardly it is 35 kilometers wide, but it controls global 20% of crude oil shipping. Okay, so this is what it will be about. Now, if you're someone who likes local news, national news, international news, subscribe to Legacy IAS Academy channel. Now let's get into the video. So, a historic development is happening. Like I told, US and Iran are very close to an MOU, Memorandum of Understanding on Peace. President Trump is telling us this deal is largely negotiated and he is in no hurry to sign a deal. Now, what is the whole end point about this deal? There is 4 aspects: ending of hostilities, reopening Strait of Hormuz, and on the nuclear talk. Nuclear talk aspect, both of them have differed opinions. If you see why exactly this conflict came into the first place. See, 1979, there was an Iranian revolution where your Shah was ousted and the Islamic Republic of Iran was established. Then 1979, there was an embassy hostage crisis. Post that, there was large amount of nuclear uranium enrichment happening 2006 onwards. Finally, in your 2015, under your US President Barack Obama, JCPOA, Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, was signed by P5+1 members, which will limit Iran's nuclear enrichment and thus removing certain sanctions on Iran. This was going fine until 2018, when your US President was your Donald Trump, where he unilaterally backed out of your JCPOA, calling it a terrible deal. This further triggered anguish among not only just Iran but also other members in the P5, claiming that how can US alone unilaterally walk out of a deal that was with so much difficulty made with all the stakeholders. So from henceforth, because your US backed out from JCPOA, your Iran started again uranium enrichment. Understanding? This became a point where your Iran felt that it cannot trust USA. So 2019 onwards, the tension started escalating in your West Asia, which led to a full-fledged war in your 2026. So if you see, Strait of Hormuz has two main places. In the north, controlled by your Iran, in the south by your Oman. So this is a very narrow strip of land. Why does the Strait of Hormuz matter? Means, first and foremost, energy hungry countries like China, India, Japan, all of them are dependent on their energy source from this Strait of Hormuz. Strait of Hormuz carries almost 40% of India's supply chain. Entire world के लिए just 20% of crude oil that passes through this route. Alongside this, if you see, other Gulf countries who are dependent on the same route is your Saudi Arabia, UAE, Kuwait, Iran, Iraq. It's a very small narrow stretch of land which is just spanning between your 33 kilometers, which opens its gateway to your Arabian Sea. It connects Persian Gulf and Gulf of Oman. Any disruption in Strait of Hormuz will increase freight charges, it will increase, let's say, the oil shock throughout the world. Understanding, the entire supply chain gets affected. So what exactly is there in this MOU? Means there will be a 60-day ceasefire where they will halt all the military operations on all fronts, including Lebanon. When asked US President Donald Trump how is Israel taking this, he said the talks have happened wonderfully, in his words. The next thing that will be happening is reopening of Strait of Hormuz, where Iran has to remove the mines that it has placed. And the next thing is it has to not collect any toll fees from the freights or ships passing by. Then they will discuss about the nuclear. As of now, the nuclear enriched uranium, whatever they have, that how to deal with this will be discussed in the 60-day pause period. This is what your US President Donald Trump calls as nuclear dust. They will also discuss on Iran's commitments or the fate of nuclear capacity for Iran. This is something that Iran is not agreeing. If you see how much of the Iran's stockpile is there for uranium, means they have 440.9 kg estimated highly enriched uranium. How high is it enriched? Up to 60%. If you have to make a weapons grade enrichment of uranium, you need to enrich it to 90%. So it is just a bit short according to your IAEA estimates. So your US Secretary of State Marco Rubio, like I told, who is in India now, has also held that your Iran has to commit to a no nuclear weapon or non-nuclear weapon state, which means never will it acquire or ever will it become a nuclear weapon state. So what has US and Iran held on this views? As of now, no one knows what is in the MOU. This is the known parties. We know that there is something called as a ceasefire. US is telling this is a largely negotiated deal and which he is in no hurry to sign. And the significant process has been achieved in the words of Secretary of State Marco Rubio. US position is Iran must commit against your nuclear weapons. Iran is telling yes, negotiations are progressing towards reducing the tensions, but the concept of the fate of nuclear or nuclearization itself is not dependent on anyone else. What are the global reactions? Pakistan, which acted as a mediator, is very optimistic about the outlook. Gulf states are welcoming this because then this will lead to a stability in the region. Whereas US itself, including the same party of your US President Donald Trump, Republican Party itself is seeing it with varied interest. For example, Ted Cruz is telling that if Iran gets to have billions of dollars of money, Strait of Hormuz is being controlled by them, and they get to have nuclear weapons, then this deal is terrible. Lindsey Graham, also a Republican, tells that this deal seems to be largely pointing towards the Iran side, or it seems like Iran has a win. And she tells that as long as they have the power to disrupt the Gulf or the oil supply, then it's still not considered as a win. Cory Booker, your Democrat, has criticized the Trump's negotiation itself, claiming that this is a bad deal. Now, if you see, if there is a deal that comes out, a peace deal, and both are negotiating and both are agreeing and seeing eye to eye, then that would mean that would bring stability in West Asia, energy markets would calm down, and global economy would improve. By improve, it will come back from what it is right now. But there are huge amount of risks also that we can see here, because this is usually seen as a temporary peace because there is trust deficit. Because Iran tells it cannot trust Trump. That's what happened in 2018, which is what led them for enrichment of uranium in the first place. There is also nuclear concerns that the enrichment might continue in the future, and Israel is still concerned about your growing, let's say, increasing presence of your Iran. Why does this matter for India? Because of India's security, energy security, diaspora security, our infrastructure, and also, most importantly, our oil supply. Okay. So, what are the issues in finalizing this deal? First and foremost, mutual distrust. Neither see eye to eye nor have an opinion to trust the other. Nuclear verification as to who exactly will verify that there is lack of enrichment, or whether they have again restarted secretly nuclear enrichment. Then again, for this to happen, there will be regional oppositions also, because your Israel still feels Iran is a threat. Then is your Hormuz dispute as to who controls the Strait of Hormuz post the deal. And lastly is the political will. Finally, if you see, if this deal is successful, it reduces regional conflict, it will stabilize the oil markets, and it will bring a maritime security for all. But let's assume if this deal fails, the concern, like when I say if the deal fails, even if on paper the deal is written, but there are many things we have to be considering, such as mutual distrust. The nuclear stockpile question still remains unresolved, and the concept of long-term peace itself is very uncertain. Again, rooting back to the old cause of mutual distrust. Understanding? With this, we have come to the end of the content. If you like our content, subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, share it along with your friends. Thank you.